All right. Give me a second. Let me check everything smooth and smooth. Okay. Let me see how my volume sounds. All right. All right. Hello. Okay. Yep. I got volume, so I'm good. Okay, everybody. Welcome. Welcome again to another stream podcast. What y'all about to hear and witnessing? This is a new series, another series. And the title of this series is as the following. This is titled The Endangered Black Family, Coping with the Unsexualization and Coming Extinction of the Black Race. I am known as Mr. Chaos right here. And this is a new series. We will dedicate a book that was released 1984 by two professions, some in clinical psychology, some in education, by the name of Nathan and Julian Hare. Nathan Hare, PH.D., and Julian Hare, Ed.D. I think she's an education doctor. As y'all know, that this will be focusing on the readings of the people that bring forth what they see is not only the existence of what we call the black family, but what is going to happen move forward in the future of black family here in the West we call America in the 21st century. And I believe the purpose of this reading, and people not noticing this, is to really look into not only the little data back then, and data has been upgraded now for some time now, but what it really entwines with the future of how we view relationships and the future of are we going to have much black families in the 21st century? Because as you know, there are a lot of problems that we face that plagues the black community, from the over sexualization with the help of media propaganda to abuse in our own communities, which is a result and caused by trauma that was done to us through enslavement on the average, as y'all don't know. And we have to be honest with ourselves that it's not our fault where we at now, but it is our responsibility to really change it at the end of the day. And I believe, and I know that we could do this. We could change this. But it's going to take work at the end of the day. And I feel enough of us as a group of people, race of people, we can do this. We will do this. And we will change this. No matter how the odds are against us, we and then have the ability to change our reality and fix what was caused to our own self-annihilation and self-destruction as a group of people. So, yes, how you doing, Hassan? Good. So, for everybody that will be listening in or catching the playback, this is the introduction part of this book, and this is going to be a series like every other series. So, try to follow through as I read these pages, these paragraphs, and I want you to give your own perspective, understanding of what is read. And not only that, there is a link in the bio where you should purchase book so you could read it for yourself if you choose to. I recommend most people read this for themselves because they want to get they should get a better understanding of the situation we are in. And not only that, it's good to have in your own library. If you're a parent, you want to have these type of books in your household for not only yourself to get understand, but for your children to read as well. So, no further ado. Let me see how lengthy this is. All right. So we'll get at this. And please, as y'all listen to the podcast, please like the podcast as well. Let everybody know. Um, and one more thing I will do before I get started. 1 second. All right. All right. As everything's sent out, and it looks like yep, everything is sounding good. So let's begin. This is the introduction. For a better black family. The most talked about but least understood subject among black Americans today is black male-female conflict. At a national synopsis on homicide among black males, sponsored by a federal agency in Washington in 1981, roughly now 39 years ago. The predominantly black male behavioral and social science spent all day prepping their deliberation on the crumbling of black maternal structure and the need for mass employment of black males, with anger, verbal jabs at the infamous 1965 Moynihan report. Oh, the Moynihan report, sorry. Apparently unaware that Moynihan had been saying exactly the same thing 15 years before, that there is a trauma somehow in black maternal relationships, and that one solution in a particular society or patriarchal society at least might be the need to beef up the economics, at least the employment clout of black males. You hear that? Now, let me pause right here. As y'all know, in the 21st century, we have right now employment of America's roughly succeeding 40 million unemployed. Now, if anybody did really data of who's being unemployed, I know for a fact that more than half is black people unemployed. I could be right or wrong, but some people could look through the data themselves and, hit back in the comment section at the end of this podcast. But let's continue. For instance, 60% of the black wife beaters are unemployed in Minneapolis, where only 5% of the overall workforce is unemployed. Let me read that again. For instance, 60% of the black wife beaters are unemployed in Minneapolis, where only about 5% of the overall workforce is unemployed. Interesting. The only difference in what the Moynihan said and what his anger black critics were saying was that Moynihan was concerned with the 25% female-headed family rates in 1965, while the black scholars were calling attention to the almost 50%, which is 48% nationwide and growing, female-headed black family rate today. The black social science of Moynihan in terms are echoing by white feminist scholars who wish to spotlight the special poverty of female-headed families, unmindful that the feminist solution have merely compound them. The only difference is that the upper middle class white feminists argue that it is that who should have the job of continuously the black female headed poor in preference to the unemployment black males. And please, people that's watching, please hit that like button. It is the purpose of the endangered black family coping with the unsexualization and coming extinction of the black race. Not only to analyze the be now well conceded troubles within the black family, so long denied by defense, black black intellectual in the post-Moynihan inertia, but also to penetrate the conspiracy of silence on the quiet kept government programs and policies unleashed by Nixon's administration, what they call eugenicists, both liberal and moderate alike, exploiting the ideal of women liberation. And let me pause right here for y'all to know. All women liberation movement was not really so far done by the possibilities of women. They were assisted by men. The same dominant men that most of the black race, especially men that complain about, he's the same one that is enforcing and creating these type of movements to undermine you, not his own. Don't be fooled because you see now a lot of these so-called men that non-black men that follow liberalism, all this conservative nonsense, that they feel they're powerless. No, it was another greater men amongst their own racial group made it happen to create what we call feminism. And I hear stories that feminism has been around longer since the 1800s, which either is true or not, and I'm not going to go into that. But at the end of the day, what women get today is by the backings and enforcement by men. Keep that in mind. Know this well, learn it well, and understand it perfectly and clear. Got it? Good. All right. These official and their demographics were alarmed because they had descended that being affluent white people are not reproducing themselves even as the black poors and non-white whores continue to multiply. And if you look at most of what the poor white whores have a hard time multiplying too. But like I said, this was written now going on 36 years ago. Their anxiety not only was and is expressively piqued by the belief that the rising population pressures among the non-white poor will lead to social unrest. And see article Abortion and National Security Issues in the August 1983 issue on the Humanities reprint from the American Journal of Obstetrics and Genealogy or Gynecology, written by Stephen Mumford of the International Fertility Research Program. Mumford backs his claim by quoting the following. Often in testimony before the House Selecting Committee on Population or the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to the effects that population control in order to keep down rebellion in the developing world and domestically is America's priority. Let's read that again. The House Select Committee on Population or the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to the effects that population control in order to keep down rebellion in the developing worlds and domestically. Is America priority the most serious threat to the United States security? To use Alexander Hagen's words, that them non unclear war or them uncleary war. Charles Cargill, World Population Society of 1974. Former Assistant Secretary of State George W. Ball, 1976. Former World Bank President Robert M. McNamara, 1977, and former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, which is known as the CIA, Williams Colby, 1970 and 1978. Ambassador Marshall Green then coordinates of population affairs of the United States Department of State, 1978. Retired Army General Maxwell Taylor, Centers for Strategies and International Studies. Lester Brown, the World Watch Institution, and others for his works towards population control. Stephanie Mumford received a 1982 Distinguished Service Award from the American Humanities Association, as did in 1983 the feminist Fran Hoskin, editor of WIN, which means Women International Network, News, who almost killed the National Black Mentors supplement to more than 100 black weeklies because the mentors would not take back soon enough to suit Mrs. Hoskins, and the statement that Africans in preference to white feminists could very well determine its own cultural future. The white demographics and eugenicists are concerned, moreover, that the white race may be growing extinct. See that? Calculations have led to the predictions that whites will be in the minority in the United States by the year 2050, in California by the year 2000, which Latino, or what they call Hispanics, which they import intentionally, have actually, we're in 2020 now. So they said they estimate by 2000. We are 20 years behind of what was already predicted already. And they said that they're going to be minority by 2050. And as you know, America's going to look very different within that 3 years during 2050, 2053. If y'all notice. But by the year 2030, whites will constitute only 50% of the Earth's human population. Mm. Thus, in the autumn of 1969, when Betty Friedan, founder of the NOW, the National Organization for Women, and the author of the feminist Mystique, stood in the twilight of the Black consciousness movement and declared that the blacks had the society of white women will have the 70s, she was not speaking as a fortune teller. Though she would tell our fortune, forces already in motion of which she was a part, but by no means the architect would mold our families and therefore our psychology, economics, and sociology fates. However, Betty Friedan, a happy married woman who has subsequently altered the essence of her initial strategy now that the deed is done. Preparations for her second stage was representing the forces that would subdue and capture the ideal and inspiration of black intelligence or intellectual for the next 14 years. Black intellectuals allowed the white feminists in search of their identities and practicing assertiveness not only to take jobs and income while raising the standard of living and contributing to inflation and argumental consumption more than basic production and making two-earner families the norm. Let's read that again. The black intellectuals allowed the white feminists in search of their identities and practicing assertiveness not only to take jobs and income, but while raising the standard of living and contributing to inflation and argumentally consumption more than basic production and making two-earner families the norm. This is not by our doing. This is done by a system, a society that's not in our control. Do y'all understand what was just read? The two-family income is a norm. But because they have had to change direction of how America is going, you now hear this nonsense. And this is something foreign to me. You hear this about now people doing 50-50 partnership and all this garbage, which, if you want to do it, it's good. That's fine. But this is not the norm in life in America. It was created. Do y'all hear what I'm saying? This crap was created for the coming extinction of our people. I can't speak about the other race because I only can speak from the skin I'm in. But I always hear stories that usually in a regular black household, usually a man will work and provide the necessities to feed more than five, or actually more than a wife and a couple of children. Today, you can't do that in the 21st century. Matter you couldn't do that in the end of the last century going on to this century. Because everything that we complain about or we whine and complain about, this is all fabricated and created by design. It's not your fault, my people. Black people, it's not your fault. But it is our responsibility to deal with the matters personally. We are responsible to this, to really correct the problems that's set for on us. Because they create the problem and they will try to bring the solution. But they know they're not bringing no solution. They're only going to bring the problems more so that way once the black race figures out a solution, and it might be pretty much far gone. As you know that families and black society is very much non-existent. Yes, there is a growing of mostly women are raising these babies by themselves. Is there a fault? Mm, not really, but it's a responsibility to correct it. Same thing with the man. You brought forth and see this woman, regardless of the financial situation, you had to play your role as a man and make sure your children come out right so that they can compete in a very much uncertain digital, high tech digital world we live in now. So let's continue. To take the jobs that could have gone to black males, while the black social science made studies found by the liberal, moderate, grant making establishments to argue whether black women were taking the jobs, while the black intellectual brought the anti pathology bias and positive thinking of the 1970s. White liberals and the white liberal woman was thereby left free to take center stage and cry about the pathologies, real and imagined, as in the case of rape. In the white family, for instance, a rapist was declared to be a political animal, when in reality, a rapist is in a psychopath of nothing else and is racially psychopathically for white women to exploit the rape issue overwhelming, victimizing the black urban poor woman in efforts to legalize or legitimize the white agenda of cultural change. It is pathetic for black intellectuals to let along to help them. If rape were a political act, the most political people of all would be employing this new tool of power and committing most of the rapes. In fact, rape is one of the consequences of the politics of a moral, decent white society, afflicting predominantly the low-income urban black male and female whose interest continues to be failed and bartered away by behaviorals and social science. Although we ourselves should be seriously trying to solve the problem of black on black rape, crime, and violence, rape must effectively or imperfectly will not be solved by white feminists. Indeed, it has increased since the feminists got into the act, despite millions of dollars in government grants and private donations and studies, and it shall increase for the foreseeable future while black intellectuals and leaders continue to fail their roles. But you know the leaders don't really work on their roles anyway. They're meant to fail because they were bought off. Unfortunately, even now, some of the leaders that's floating around now that said for black people are non-existent. And since they went and talked about the rape thing, let me say this: if we remember the Me Too movement that was created by a black woman, I think Tawana Burks, back in 2018, do you know who foresaw it and took over that? White women. So it goes back again to all people that feel history is foolishness, is non-existent. This is the same thing. This is the same old playbook that has happened back in the 80s, or probably longer in the 80s since this book was written. But because our arrogance, our ignorance to really respect history as it was, study it, learn it, understand, apply it, so that way you don't fall for the same trick bag, this is what happens. No one can tell me that history is not important. I see why our people are conditioned to not respect it because it's painful, it hurts. But it's better you respect it and know it and learn it and deal with that pain now, that pain. So you don't repeat the same mistake. I mean, you don't repeat the same mistakes now. Cause fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, I might as well get slapped around. Cause I was asking for it. Let's continue. Readers' interest in pursuing how black intellectuals were misled into denying black urban families decades in the name of a false racial pride may see the introduction to Talcon, Paruns, and K. Clark Ed. The Negro American of 1967, roughly now 53 years ago, for accounts of his organization of black intellectual moderations under the auspice of the American Academy of Arts and Science in the early, middle, and late 1960s, and for the motives behind Parson conspiracies and his strategies of pluralization. Also, Erik Erikson blueprint to emphasize only the strength or positive of black families' life persistence to the conference or conference set up in 1965 by the planning group that follows the private meetings of the 33 scholars handpicked by Parson expressly to tone down black rebellions, since it would have, he believes, dire repercussions for the intellect or the international goods and will of America, particularly in the rich mines of Africa. If blacks continue to stir things up by making themselves a special case, see also William J. Wilson analysis of Parsons' influence in the new black psychology or sociology. And Blackwell and Jones T. Ed, black sociologists, historical and contemporary perspectives of 1974 also are on what black intellectuals misunderstand almost is that black families and black world of March of 1976. Instead of adopting an honest and deeper study of the problem of the black family, black intellectuals took up on the Pollyannian psychology of social science that would characterize in 1970. However, an oppressed people begins to feel too weak to fight, and the real oppressors, they tend to turn away from social combat to concentrate upon patching up their battered self-image and advantage personal development through human potential, workshop, tai chi, hypnosis, meditation, feel-good therapy, and the likes. By trying the esteem of self-concept of groups to mystique problems of free adaptability, they become self-centered and apathetical in the face of persistent oppression from without. Thus, while black intellectuals, with their condemnation and the two-car garage, continue to ferret out and assert the strength of the black family. Everywhere we went, black people were crying the blues as male-female conflict mounted and things continued to fall apart. Black intellectuals join white feminists or collaborate with them in suppressing all studies and writing finding pathology in the black family, and thus would be true at least until the 80s. See Michael Levy, Feminist and Though Control in the June 1982 issues of Contemporary, Tony Brown, National Syndicate columnist, and Savetti, author of The Choice, also are among those who have charged a current blackout by the published industries on meaningful black books. Okay. Meanwhile, also in 1969, Richard Nixon had come to office, and unknown to us at the time, and most people this day, for the public had never been told called for legislation on population control, which Congress enacted in 1970. Let me read that again. Meanwhile, also in 1969, Richard Nixon had come to office, and unknown to us at the time, and most people to this day, for the public has never been told, called for legislation on population control, which Congress enacted in 1970. We're now 50 years since they now took more serious in population control. And let me tell you a little short background of population control. There was a documentary called Alpha 21. I don't know if people are familiar with it. But the actions of depopulating people was the stage that the people that run this country and probably globally was on the direction during the late 1800s, particularly after enslavement. And the purpose why they did is because they want to take out the competition, which really they try and eliminate as much non-blacks as possible. So to find out over close to a century later that they now taking it more seriously, they was always in the pursuit and direction of depopulating people. I want people to get this clear and understand this well. Because at the end of the day, what's the purpose of killing billions of people? Unless your real agenda is for more control. Because they're not really concerned about feeding people. As you know, they feed people genetic modified foods, as y'all know. And not only that, but they control most of the resource that everybody has to consume: water, air, etc. And we're not sure where the vaccine is going to lead to this as well. We could probably put that in the same conversation as well. But at the end of the day, they have to reduce population of people. I know people don't want to hear this, but they tell you that the earth is too overpopulated. The earth has been around for billions of years. 8 to 10 billion people is nothing to this earth. Hell, if you go to certain continents right now, certain continents could fit billions of people without no problem. But they keep programming us that there's too much because you're dealing with a racial group of people that loves to feed and parasite over others and abuse the natural resource of the earth. I'm not even going more deep how they even going into the earth now, damaging it as it is. They do it more for profit and gain, but it's much deeper than that. But let's continue. In 1971, Sam Yvette, now a Howard University professor and then a Newsweek correspondent, fired allegedly for his book The Choice reference to Nixon's efforts, page 109 through 115. Although Yvette did not have available the commission finally set of recommendations, he nevertheless recognized its genocidal nature even in the embryonic form. Indeed, Nixon is quoted as saying in 1969, and I'm going to use Nick's voice, a third measures for which I would ask your support, and this is the only one the government has really tried to have reach the poor, is the Commission on Population Growth and the American Future, which I have proposed to Congress and which have been most cordially received there, as well as by church and civic organization throughout the nation. America, I believe, has come to see how necessary it is to be responsible concerned with the subject. In proposing the commission, I also declare that it would be the goal of this administration to provide adequate family planning service within the next 5 years to all those who want them. There are some of 5 million women in low economic families who are in this situation, but I can report that the steps to meet the goal, have already been taken with the administration and the programs is underway. emphasized in the text is quoted by Sam Yvette. And I would remind people that's watching, please like the stream, please like the podcast. You know what I'm saying? I would like to see our comments at the end of this podcast. So please don't be hesitant. That's watch on another channel. Like this podcast, please. Thank you. Yvette reports that the conference itself, White House Conference on Food and Nutrition, December 24th, 1969, which I think is December the 2nd through the 4th, was worse than a Pharisee. Not only did it dash the hope of the hungry in a way almost unperceivably, it also succeeded in advancing against strong sentiments of the poor. At the conference, the administration own program of imposing birth control on the black poor. Let's read that again. Yvette reports that the conference itself in the White House Conference on Food and Nutrition of December the 2nd through the 4th of 1969, and she wrote, was worse than a Pharisee. Not only did it dash the hopes of the hungry in a way almost unprecedentedly, it also succeeded in advancing against strong sentiments of the poor at the conference. The administration own program of imposing birth control on black poors. Damn. After Dr. Alan F. Gottmischen of the Population Council have given support to the primarily recommendation of mandatory birth control to any girl over the age of 13. And y'all know birth control is very harmful, dangerous to women, but it's very dangerous to younger girls that will become women once they hit the age of puberty. Imagine you taking those birth control pills at age 12 now. How dangerous and damage that does to your system. So, who requested, with or without parental consent, and mandatory abortion for any such girl found to be pregnant. A mandatory sterilization of any such girl given birth out of wedlock for a second time. Fannie Lou Hamer, the black civil rights worker from Mississippi, still ailing, Sam Yvette reports, and lame from police beating over the years, was resisting on a bench in the lobby of a Sheraton Park hotel. On the hearing, the program begins planning inside. She responds with shock and gay disappointment. What? She exclaimed. What are you talking about? Where are they carrying on the kind of talk? Hearing the location and without another word, the gallant lady pulled herself up on a cane and headed for the panel meeting room. Along the way, she spotted certain black men whom she summoned to follow her. She arrived at the room with about half a dozen bold black men who walked to the front of the room and stood like soldiers. Mrs. Hamer followed them to the front and stood in the center of the panel leader, demanding to be heard. Dr. Lowy yielded, and as he said, she then demanded that the birth control proposal, which had just been adopted, be reconsidered. After a 10-minute orientation spelling out the horrors of such a law in the hands of public officials, she had known the resolution was obliterated. After a promise from Dr. Lowe and the panelists that no such resolution would be further entertained, Mrs. Hamer and her black male aiders march out as directly as they had come. Quite apparently, a majority objective of what was originally called the White House Conference on Hunger have failed. However, the tentative failures by no means obscure from the poor and clear attitude which the government would seek to implement as laws and policies and solutions to the hunger problem will not be more food to feed the hunger, but fewer hunger persons to be fed. When Sam Yvette made those prophets, revelations, and the choices and the issues of black survival in America, he was prophetic, or what we call prophetic, but had no way of knowing that the commission would nevertheless be established and would not only liberalize the troublesome resolution in their programming, leaving them, if any, more deadly and sell them as liberators. They would do so without even letting the public know of the existence of the commissions. It is possible to read about it only in the journals of family planning perspective, wherein population control experts and eugenicists are talking amongst themselves far removed from the eyes and the ears of the average intellectual, let alone the public. One other book, the only one we have coming across the mention, the Commission on Population Growth and the American Future, is Great Expectations by Charles Harris. Great Expectations is a book purporting to explain the population factors involving in the baby boom generation impact on society. It is endorsed with a send-off by Charles Westhoff, who was executive director of the commission's chair by John D. Rockefeller III. And if y'all know the history of Rockefeller, y'all can look them up personally. 3 times the book refers to the commission by never so much as hint at a nature of intent, let alone that it had orchestrated the very trends of consequence of the books was purporting to explain. Following Sam Yvette's warning in 1971 and our own restricted efforts to be heard in opposition to the white man's unfactual of the blinders worn by black intellectuals regarding black families strive since 1969 and just after Nixon fell to the Watergate scandal and the Commission on Population Growth and the American Future reveals is resolution in the Population Control Journal, Family Planning Perspective. However, hardly anybody other than readers of that journal were in the Commission intention and plans to propagate, orchestrate, and erect their problematic solutions are discussed among themselves. It appears aware of the Commission existence. The silence is so effective as to cause knowledgeable person, when told of influence, to preach their head in disbelief. And by 1975, having complete a PhD dissertation, the PhD dissertation in clinical psychology on black male-female relations. Before we switch to relations, after people thought we were talking about sex, we continued to push the idea of black male-female relationships as a new era of concentration, suggesting it to black professionals and scholarly conventions, sometimes volunteers to present a paper, as in 1975 at the meeting of the National Association of Black Psychologists held in Boston and the National Caucus of Black Sociologists held in San Francisco. We also continue to accept invitations to speak at colleges and local gatherings in remote locales throughout the country and warn editorial commentaries for a better black family, and the Ebony magazine speaks out of features. Here is what the editorial says. This is the editorial part. Let me see. I'm not sure. Right. If we had to name the most tragic failures of black people historically in the United States, we have to point to the relation between black males and black females. Our conclusion, or our confession, or negligence in this area is both curious and shocking, because the relation between males and females are the most intimate and basics of all human entanglements, and the most crucial for the subjugation of a people. Let's read that again. And we had to name the most tragic failures of black people historically in the United States, we had to point to the relations between black males and black females. Our confusion, our negligence in the air in both curious and shocking, because the relationship between males and females are the most intimate and basics of all human intangibles, and the most crucial for the subjugation of people. So, as y'all know, when you put two people at odds with each other, fighting amongst sex, all this nonsense, it furthers the cost and domination of and subjugation by other race people. And I agree with this by Julie and Nathan Harris in this. Because I find now in this society now, you don't see images of positive black families, much as you see in movies, etc. You see device, you see interracialism. All this is a weapon to keep you divided and to keep your numbers down. I'm gonna go more into as I wrap this up. When the Swedish social science Gunnar Mariel, with the collaboration of leading black and white liberal scholars, made his study on an American dilemma during World War II, he found that whites placed sexual and social intimacy first as a source of contention around the issues of black equality, while blacks put such matters last. Unfortunately, many black leaders and scholars echo Maradel in seeing this contrast as either irrelevant or as a cause for glee and nationwide chuckling. But we suspect that it merely shows that whites folks know more about the art of racism than black people know about it. Whites, not blacks, are professionally in practice of racism against blacks. Meanwhile, we are left with a agonizing duality of racism and sexism, which combines to confuse us and to control and defeat our collective trust. Almost anybody will acknowledge these days that we live in a society that is both sexist or patriarchal and racist. In such societies, it was historically the black male who, in the white man's mind, posed the crucial threat to his power and status, who conceivably could take his and white male place. However, at the same time as they endeavors to emasculate the black male, they also thought to defeminize the black female. Her beauty was deemed her femininity, and her virtue de-integrate, and she was robbed of a chance to nestle comfortably or nest comfortably on a pedestal of protection of womanhood, or otherwise to enjoy the privilege of a woman as defined by the white slave master society and her own, the slave society. She was not to be woman any more than a black man could be a man. It goes back to that childlike mentality that they pose and view black people as children. As long as you operate and conduct yourself like children, you do not get nowhere. You only wait for your parents to give you something. Yet black crusaders have attacked inequality in every major social institution in American society except the family, let alone black male female relations as such. In the area of education, we have fought for school integration and raised the alternative of community control and quality black oriented education in political or in politics. We now have the right to vote and already have elected mayor, congressmen, and women state legislators and the likes. In economics. We have the fair employment law, black capitalism, and black left wing efforts to replace capitalism with socialism. In aesthetics, we have excellence in music, entertainment, acting on television, and black movies producing the direct by black as well as Hollywood prepared. And in religion, we have established our own churches and our own denomination, even our own section, and now are searching for a universal black theology. But we have done for the black family collectively, aside from asserting the notion of strength and tracing its exclusive and ancient African roots. Thus, a good anthropologist or anthology, but it is not black reconstruction. Too many black scholars and intellectuals have tried for sharky reasons in recent years to pretend that all is well with the black family, despite our recognized economic, educational, and political deprivation. Appealing in the only words we know that begins to describe the way we have begun to play down the neglect and psychological effects and the social destruction of the inability to earn an acceptable living. We pretend that somehow we can't see the deadly significance of unemployment and underdevelopment of the black male for whom a program of mass unemployment and reconstruction other than a prison and military camp. It's necessary if the black family is ever going to be reconstructed as a valuable leverage to the quest of social and economic elevation. The black male endeavors to camouflage or overcompensate for his own awareness that society has frustrated his performance on his role to often take the form of a fight or a flight from the family nest. Mm. According to the United States Census report of a late July, almost 2 out of black families are now leading by females. Yeah, this is an old study, mind you, so don't think that this is something new now. This is pretty much old. Never mind the rhetoric to the effects that there are may be ideally as most of the black families involved instead of black and white liberal social science who live in the two-parent, two-car families, like most induce of social decay. This figure for black female headed or family is more than 3 times the rate for whites. Black children are off or actually black children are about as likely to suffer the loss of at least one parent, usually the father, as not two among those black families with income under 6K. The figures, nearly all of them, 9 out of 10, we love and lose our parental figures too early and too often as children. And this frustration and conflict manifests itself in many subtle and complex ways in later adulthood life. It is no wonder that black males and families are finding an increasing hand to get along together, but we are arrogant to this unfortunate fact in the name of a false racial pride. The problem that the black male female schisms is complex. Further by the inability of the white dominant feminist movement to answer crucial questions it has raised for black female liberators or liberation. We, for our part, have failed in incorporate black women liberation as an integral part of the general black movement, as against sporadic black female efforts, which in their simple mercy of white feminists are too often hostile and contrary to the black male. The problem in turns is compounded by the displaced power struggle that presents itself between the black male and the black female. We propose that we begin to establish black love groups, psychologically or psychological workshops, group therapies to begin to elevate black love groups to the status of a social movement, reminiscing but by no means mimicking the popular of the so-called encounter groups among alienated and disaffected white individuals during the late 1960s. In this way, we can begin to iron out our difference and our difficulties and perhaps to arrive ultimately at a workable solution. Understand us, we are not trying to say that black people as a group are sick, but it may be correct to say that a black person in our society doesn't have to be sick in any way to experience problems in life and living requiring professional guidance. It is clear to us that at the same time as black love groups participate works out their personal conflict, they would indirectly contribute to the general solutions of black male-female conflicts so vital to the race as a whole in the crucial years ahead. We believe that through black love groups, we may learn to love again. That is, to feel love, to love ourselves and therefore one another. We already know how to hate one another, by design, mind you. We had not reckoned on the power of through power of the control and the devices and deceit that those who would generate division and diversion in the black race could muster to perpetuate the destruction of the black family. This book is dedicated to the endeavors to resist that destruction and to build a better black family for a better love among black people everywhere. And that's the introduction part of this book. And one thing I will say, and let me go back. They said one of the few solutions with this black love issue is we'll need psychological workshops and group therapy. And I'm a proponent for the therapy for the black race. Workshops, which we could do as people right now. Last I checked, we have a lot of black psychologists and therapists here that is in the profession that do have these degrees, and some even go as far as they are beyond degrees, even to the point that they have gone back to the roots, spiritual reconnection. One, I would give you a note, Kwesi Akan. If you look him up, Ojafo, he has a workshop and a website, which he deals with, dealing with the effects of, your spirit, which also leads to your mental illness. You can find him as well. You can look him up through social media, etc. But to wrap up the introduction part, how I look at it is this. And I'm gonna give y'all something much deeper. I was listening to another stream. Right now we have a high unemployment rate here in the West we call America. And that high employment rate is not only the men that's already either homeless or not doing much anyway, but now you're gonna see the black female gonna be homeless too. And I think this might be in its first existence, probably world or globally, especially in America, but outside America, but here in America, we're gonna find a rise of homelessness and potentially of black women gonna be alone and homeless. Now I know that some of them do have their degrees, but we forgot there is more black women than men So with the ratio of those that got a degree or not, a whole bunch of them are going to be homeless because of how the economic is structured in this country. And this country is not going to fix that. I hope people know this. So we have to say, what can we do? Now, as you know, Nathan and Julius here gave a tangible solution because we have to fix our issues how we see each other. And I'm telling you right now, ladies, being strong, independent, and I'm gonna do a stream on that. Cause a woman wrote in her PhD about that strong, independent black woman. She already concluded that that is a mental illness. Be on the lookout for that. But like I said, this right here, that doing it alone in the 21st century will not cut it. Now, I'm not saying most of y'all women should go rush and get any man at this point. Right, you can find brother or whatever, non-black man, wherever you want to choose. But I'm telling you right now, it's not looking good. It's not looking good at all. And this is just the beginning. As you know, because we don't see ourselves as less than respectful as people, both men and women, only thing of this is gonna put you vulnerable, ladies. And for the men that said they not want to marry and all that stuff, I get, but like I said before, as a man, you gotta make a decision, bro. You can't live a bachelor or somewhat okay, safe lifestyle and think that you're not gonna just commit and then carry on legacy because this is how this system is structured. They have to start cutting down populations. And this is deliberate. And how they do this is by make you not even engage in having relationships. Yeah, you still having children now, but eventually that's going to soon cut back. The way how the economy is going, you don't know what is in store for you as a group of people. They already initiate the population control. All right, that's been going on for over a century, not even 50 years. This has been going on longer than that. And the only thing you're gonna see as time progresses, it's gonna accelerate. And one of the greatest weapons besides doing these things genetically, either by food, vaccines, stuff, they gonna now make you think and you won't even attempt to even procreate. Because if you don't have one black man or black woman, you will not have black children, or what we call life. So as we go delve into the more of the readings of this book, we're gonna know more of how to survive and cope with our problems as a people to reconstruct this thing we call black family. If not, there will be a coming extinction of the black race within the end of this century. Not saying we're all gonna be gone, but it's gonna be not much of us left, depending how things play out. So do not be afraid or run away. Embrace it. You do have the power. You could control and take control of this. But as we try to regain our mind, we're gonna go through this book to see what are the historical pieces and roughly some solutions to it. So for those that's listening tonight, and we'll go back to the podcast. Thank you again. Please always go back, leave a comment at the end of every podcast stream. Like this video as well, and subscribe. Or I like to say comment, subscribe, and like the video. Other than that, thank you again for listening. Good night.